All right, we're back with the panel, Roger Hedgecock and Armstrong Williams. And right before the break, Armstrong, Roger had taken exception to something you said with regard to, how we would make laws to possibly cut down on these kinds of attacks that we saw in Canada, saying that I guess he's coming from more of a civil libertarian point, doesn't want to compromise our freedoms. And your turn to respond, Armstrong.
Listen, I would never want our freedoms and our civil liberties infringed upon. But the reality of their situation, there are people out there who their only agenda in life is to create havoc and destruction, to prove a point by some false teaching and some false ideology and some false warped way of thinking about the way the world works. And they want to take out their anger and their frustration on someone else. We have to do everything we can to protect the people that occupy these federal buildings. And then one other thing about America, unusual, and we do in many places, there's a place, right to bear arms, DC, in a very limited way, have restored our right to bear arms. And so listen, I do think that people think twice before they come to places, especially in places like the Deep South. It's one of the places where you don't see as much of this going on, because I think these people are very clever. They know exactly where to go and where to penetrate and where not to. And I think more and more you have more responsible citizens bearing arms who are responsible, who can also assist law enforcement in any capacity, especially when they're defending this country against an enemy who would do destruction. So listen. We must do everything we can to assure the lives of the people that work in these federal buildings.
Look,
all right, let's move on. We could agree.
Okay. Well, I'm going to agree on the part about being armed, but I'll tell you what, I don't want a police state because some crazy guy shot Corporal Cirillo up in Canada.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on. I want to get Ferguson in here if we can. It's coming out now in droves. Washington Post yesterday joined the fray with a story, and all signs indicate if Don Lemon sits on CNN and says it looks like there's not going to be an indictment, which we don't know, but certainly the evidence looks like it would justify a non-indictment. Armstrong, what the heck? Let me start with Roger. Roger, how will this play out? Yeah, we're already getting threats that all hell will break loose in Ferguson if, in fact, there's no indictment.
Well, and we don't know the evidence because it has not fully come out. I think that leak was very badly done, and of course we don't know what the total picture is, whether there's still discrepancies between the witness testimony and the officer's testimony and so forth. All of that remains to come out. However, having said that, politically, it would be a catastrophe for Obama and the Democrats if there's this kind of increased rioting and burning places down because people are unhappy. Again, bringing up the racial divide in this country that, in my view, has been aggravated and exacerbated by the actions of Eric Holder and Barack Obama.
Armstrong?
Guys, we said the same thing in the Zimmerman-Trayvon Martin case, that if the verdict was anything except finding Zimmerman guilty, they would riot and burn, and that did not happen, nor it will not happen in this instance. And these people were living in hell before there was a Ferguson and what happened with Michael Brown and everyone else in this sad scenario. Listen, it is obvious if you look at the ballistics, if you look at the case shellings, if you look at the blood splatter, there was an obvious struggle inside the law enforcement vehicle. Most of this supports the accounting of the law enforcement. You had 8 to 9 black witnesses who testified before the grand jury, only reinforcing what Michael Brown said. And I do think that we are.
You mean reinforce? Wait, Armstrong, you mean reinforcing what the officer said?
Right, absolutely reinforcing what the law officer said. And well, listen, of course, and they were afraid to come out and say anything because they were fearful for their lives. And there's no question in my mind that many of these race hustlers, and that's exactly what they are. That's how they continue to get their contracts and a lot of the dollars that they're able to accumulate. They divide, but you have to separate the leadership of everyday people. I think anybody with common sense looking at this evidence, and especially at the autopsy report, listen, you're
I hope you're right, Armstrong.
Guilty. It is
me too.
I hope your prediction comes true. Nonviolence, no matter what happens, guys. Armstrong and Roger, thank you both. Give Me 5 is next.